Hi everybody, welcome to part 2 of the short video series of how to control your emotions. In the previous video, we covered the basic theoretical groundwork of the ABC model of emotions, and you practiced formulating your emotional difficulties via the ABC model. In this video, we'll elaborate a bit more upon the nature of thoughts and do another but more advanced practical exercise. So in the previous video, we went through an exercise where you formulated your undesirable emotional response in ABC terms. In this exercise, you had to identify what beliefs you were holding that led to your emotional consequence. Now, for some of you, this may have been an easy process. However, for others, it may have been quite difficult. Maybe you just found you couldn't remember what you were thinking at the time that you had your emotional difficulty, or perhaps you think, you know what, I didn't have any thoughts at all. I just simply felt angry, or I felt anxious or sad. Okay, well, this is perfectly normal and not unusual at all. It can be difficult at times to identify the thought process underlying your emotions. I'd like to emphasize that it is a skill and you do develop it with practice and with learning the theory. So to help clarify this process, there are two major points to first understand. The first major point is that your thoughts and beliefs are often automatic and exist at a lower level of conscious awareness. In cognitive therapy terms, these are labeled automatic thoughts. This simply means that your thoughts occur very fast and you're not actively aware of them. This does not mean that you can't be aware of them, simply that you're not focusing your awareness on the thoughts at the time that they occur. This is similar to how the objects of a theater fade from your conscious awareness even though they exist in your field of vision, simply because you're so focused on watching the movie play on the screen. Secondly, even though we've been doing a written exercise to modify our beliefs, not all thoughts are verbal. While we all think using words, our thoughts also take place in the form of images or imagined scenarios filled with sounds and sensations. For instance, if you feel anxious in getting to work late, you might have an imagined picture of your boss yelling at you rather than verbally thinking, my boss might yell at me. And it's this mental image in your head that evokes anxiety. So when you're trying to identify your thoughts, just remember that they're not always verbal. Okay, so now that we're a bit clearer on the nature of thoughts, it's time to get to the absolute core concept of rational emotive behavior therapy and cognitive behavior therapy. That is, the more irrational your thoughts are, the more you will experience unhealthy emotions, and the more rational your thoughts are, the more you will experience healthy emotions. In other words, the more your thoughts align with reality as it is, the more mentally sound you will be. Now, what do we mean by rational thinking? Well, according to REBT theory, rational thoughts are those that have four general characteristics. 1. They correspond to reality. 2. They're logical. 3. They're flexible and not rigid or extreme. And 4. They're self-constructive. So, to identify whether a thought is rational, just ask yourself the following questions. Can I prove that it's true? Does it actually make sense? Am I demanding something must be a certain way no matter what? Or am I preferring it to be a certain way? And lastly, does it actually help me achieve my goals in life? This is a bit abstract, so let's try to make this description more concrete using an example. Let's go with the example we covered in the previous video and determine whether it's a rational or irrational belief. So 1, let's check, does it correspond to reality? Basically, can I prove that it's true? Well, the first sentence of this belief is a prediction, not an actual fact. It may or may not actually happen, so we can't actually prove its truthfulness yet. But more importantly, can you prove that it would be horrible if it did occur? Well, the word horrible tends to imply something significantly or extremely bad, such as the world ending, a nuclear war happening, torture. So if random strangers judge you at a party, is that really comparable to the world ending or torture? Well, obviously not. So clearly you can't prove that it would be horrible. Second, is this belief logical? Does it make sense that it's horrible if strangers at a party judge me? Again, as we just covered, this person has greatly exaggerated the consequences of such an event happening. It might not be fun if people judge you at a party, but you're not greatly harmed and it really doesn't affect your life in any major way. So this person is catastrophizing. Third, is this thought flexible or extreme? Well, definitely extreme. Surely at worst, such an event would be unfortunate, but not an absolute horror or nightmare. And lastly, does this belief help me achieve my goals and live a more satisfying life? Heck no. It makes me feel anxious, less happy in the moment, and inhibits me from socializing with others. So clearly, this belief is not rational. So when you ask these questions, you act as both a detective, sniffing out irrationalities in your thinking, and you become an active debater of irrational thinking. In fact, this is actually the next step of the ABC model, D, which stands for disputing. So let's do another self-helping activity. Now look at the ABC exercise you completed in the previous video, or generate a new one. Pause the video to take the time to write it down on paper or in the comment section if you're comfortable. Now once you've done that, look at the belief that you've written. If this leads to an unhealthy or undesirable emotional or behavioral consequence, then it is likely irrational. So I want you to try to identify and pick apart its irrationalities, and then delete the irrational belief from your mind by debating it. So once you've formulated your emotional difficulties by the ABC model, write down D for disputing. In this section, ask yourself the following 3 questions in the process. 1. Is this belief true? Does it correspond to reality? Can you prove that it's true? What evidence is there that might contradict this belief? Secondly, does it make sense? Is it a logical conclusion? And lastly, does holding on to this belief help me achieve my goals? Will it make my life better or help me live happier? So take some time in asking and answering these questions properly. Again, I highly recommend you write your questions and answers down on paper. If you're a bit stuck or finding it difficult, I have written an example ABCD exercise in the comment section below. As you can see in that example, it really helps to forcefully debate the irrational belief. The more often and the more forcefully you do this, the quicker your emotional improvements will be. So now you've finally learned the method of how to get rid of irrational beliefs and correspondingly the unhealthy emotions. Now, a final word of note is that the longer these negative thought patterns have existed, the more work you'll need to do to uproot them. What this just means is that you must debate it more forcefully and more often to see a quicker improvement. Sometimes these improvements can occur quickly or even immediately, but in other cases it may also take some time and persistence. But so be it. It is worth it and your life will be better as a result. You can even think of it as a fun challenge, debating the thoughts that are holding you back in life. In the next video, we'll dive into even more advanced theory of rational emotive behavior therapy. We'll talk about your life philosophies / core beliefs and the difference between healthy emotions and unhealthy